Hey guys, it's Josh Snow and Field CTO Brian Anderson. Today we're going to cover an introduction to Terraform modules. All right, Brian, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for your time. Thanks for joining. In this session, we're going to cover what is a Terraform module. And I'm starting out here on the Terraform registry. In some of our other sessions, we have introductions to what is Terraform, what are resources, how to apply those things. And today we're going to be using some of the resources that we find here from the registry in that we have in a module, which is a module is a combination of one or more resources and one or more providers. So in the case that I wanted to take something like an internet firewall rule, for example, and I wanted to have maybe a collection of rules where I create more than one rule at one time, and I have that become like a template, a module is a good example of how to combine together multiple resources into something that's reusable, that you can make it extensible essentially to have it be a package of like corporate rules or, rules that apply to remote users or, a collection of those things essentially in a reusable package.
And you can make them dynamic too in that way. So if you had different domains or IP addresses that change, this is a nice way to be able to do that.
Mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and pull up a terminal window here. In the terminal window, I'm in the demo community folder, and I have what's called an IDE or an integrated development environment. It's basically a text editor that's used for code. On the side, this is VS Code that I'm using. So in the same folder here, I've got a couple of files in here, and you see this in previous Terraform videos that we have as well. But we do want to, in a versions file, call out what providers that we're going to be referencing. And in this case, we've got the Cato Networks provider. There are some variables that we're defining here. These are the values that we're passing in to our provider, which would be like my authentication. And in this case, the reason we don't see any values here is because I have these on the operating system as environment variables. If I prefix this with capital TF, capital var, I can have these be environment variables so I don't put my token in clear text in text files local on my machine, right? So as a starting point, I've got this main file. And by the way, the syntax for this can be found right here on the Terraform registry. We can see examples of how to configure all of this directly from Terraform registry for your reference as well, just to know where I'm getting my syntax from. So inside of here, maybe the first thing that I want to do in this scenario is I want to create an internet firewall rule and an internet firewall section. So a section is used to organize rules, and I can simply copy this and put it into, my file, and now I have a resource that is called TF section, and I kind of give it a name in here, and this is how we would create an internet firewall section. If I wanted to go create a rule, I can simply copy and paste some of this syntax from here as well. But I've got a couple of those things prepared here off to the side, so I'll show you what this is going to look like here. In this case, we've got one section, and I'm taking the output of this section of the ID of that, meaning that this rule is going to reference this section. So this rule is going to go into that section when I create it. And I've got a section named remote users. So let me go back into my Terraform directory, and I have an alias to reference Terraform as TF, but I'll go and type it out for you here. So Terraform init, which initializes, and it's going to look at my versions file and it's going to download all the provider configurations that I have specified. And then we can run a Terraform plan, and Terraform plan is going to tell me what it's going to do, right? So this is what we've covered in previous videos as well. And now I could say Terraform apply, and I'm going to say auto approve, if I could type that correctly. And so when I say Terraform apply auto approve, it's going to go ahead and create my section and my rules. And this is my Cato management application account that I'm creating these resources in. I now see that I have a remote user section and I have a block domains rule with this test.com that I see from my configuration right here. But what I want to do now is I want to turn the creation of these two resources into something that's a little bit more dynamic and useful. So let me go ahead and destroy this really quickly. And I'll do a Terraform destroy. And let's go ahead and remove these resources from the Cato management application here. We can see those disappear in just a moment. There's my section disappearing as well. And then it should publish and that's removed. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. And what I want to do is I want to move these into a folder. And our module essentially is just a folder. I'm going to call this IF rules. And in my Internet Firewall rules folder, I'm going to create a new file called main.tf. So essentially, I'm going to move the creation of these resources into this folder. and I've kind of prepared a little file that has these already kind of ready to go. But essentially, I'm referencing the same versions configuration, meaning that I want to use the Cato Networks provider. And then I have this exact same two resources I had before with one minor change. Notice that I have a var.domains here, this variable that is called domains. What it means is instead of defining my domains directly inside of my configuration, I can actually pass that in as a variable. So what I can do is maybe I wanted to block Google and Facebook, but I don't know if that's a valid use case, but let's say a test.com and test2.com or something. So instead of needing to reference all of these lines of code, which I needed to do before to create my section or my rule, all that I need to do now is reference a module that points to
Hmm.
this folder, right?
And you can reference that multiple times if you're going to do multiple modules, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
if you had a template of a collection of different resources or rules that you wanted to create, maybe there's a corporate set of policies and a certain set of policies that apply only to this office, or there's some that apply to certain types of applications, certain types of configurations you want to have based on region,
Hmm.
you could then templatize those and package them together in this way.
And are my options in the Cato Terraform community, the registry? So it's of what of some of those that you could build? Okay, cool.
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly. We'll see a list of all the Cato modules here in just a moment. But let's go back into our terminal window. And I'll do a Terraform init. And what init is going to do is it's going to look and see if any of my configurations have changed. And it found that I have an Internet Firewall Rules module. And let's do a Terraform plan. And the Terraform plan is going to tell me that it's also going to create two resources for me. But notice that instead of
Mm,
test.com, it now has the two domains that I'm passing in. So
yeah.
I can accomplish the same thing of creating a section and n number of rules now is just simply 4 lines of code.
Yeah.
And I could say Terraform apply as well. And then when I go back into the Cato management application, and I can let this job run and finish, it's then going to publish. And I now have my remote
That's
users and I
awesome.
have the new domains of Google and Facebook.
That's
So at a
awesome.
high level, this is what a module is and how to use that is a collection of one or multiple resources from one or multiple providers. And
Hmm.
so keep in mind that inside this module, I can also have AWS providers or Google providers. Or if you go to the Cato management app, or I'm sorry, the Terraform registry, I can look for all of the Cato modules that exist, which essentially is all of the topologies that you'd want to be able to deploy with something
Hmm.
maybe. So if we navigate over to the Terraform registry and you look for Cato networks and you look at all of the modules that are published, we see there's many, many modules that are published here for almost every topology that Cato supports. For something large and complex like Transit Gateway for AWS, for example, there are code examples here to deploy an entire Transit Gateway deployment with HA built in with connecting to multiple networks. All we need to do is define our input parameters, and you can have an entire deployment be templatized in that way. And if you wanted to look at the raw code for this, the link to the repo is there to show you what resources are going to be created under the hood. But essentially, that is an introduction to Terraform modules and how
Well,
to use those in production.
so just a quick summary, like go out to the registry, look at the modules, walk through the video, repeat this yourself of what Brian walked through. This is a simple use case that we want to introduce to you so that you can start to apply this. And then the use cases really start to explode because you can dynamically do a lot of these things in a Cato environment without ever having to touch the CMA. So it's really powerful, and be able to crunch that code down into a few lines of code allows you to open up a lot of possibilities. So we appreciate your time, and thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.